So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Dustin, Brandon, and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air. We're coming up on TLC this weekend. NWA's Into the Fire looks pretty intriguing as well. Maybe that'll be something we watch prior to TLC, as well as what's going on in AEW and the rest of the world in WWE and professional wrestling. I'm joined on YouTube, as always, to my right-hand side, or left-hand side if you're watching on YouTube, Icebreaker21, and myself at KRock, Jared on Instagram and Twitter, the show on Twitter at Heel to the Face. So without further ado this week, let's just actually start this week with Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. It is this Sunday on pay-per-view. The card so far, not so stacked, meaning that they still have, it looks like, matches to be announced. But what do you make of no championship, and not just obviously Brock Lesnar, but Bray Wyatt taking on The Miz in what looks like it's not a title match?
Yeah, that's very odd, to be honest with you. I was kind of hoping that they would put the title on the line, but I guess in the sense, I think we all know as very smart wrestling fans, it would be very dumb for WWE to just drop the title, have Bray drop the title that quickly. So I get why they probably wouldn't put the title on the line, just because now it makes it look like, okay, maybe he has a chance, but I don't think so.
I think they should not put the title on the line a lot more. Obviously, this goes back to the talk of he probably shouldn't be the champion.
Yeah, well, facts.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that he can have more intriguing storylines with people where he can technically lose and not have to always look so strong. And, he can maybe go on a winning streak against everybody because, again, having the championship, it kind of creates that element. Obviously, I don't think The Miz is going to beat Bray Wyatt if the championship is on the line. I don't really see him beating Bray Wyatt. Period,
I don't. Yeah, at least
it adds more intrigue. That's why one of my favorite main events of all time, WrestleMania-wise, is The Rock versus John Cena. And the first time, not the second time, the first time, I really looked forward to that match because of the fact that normally at WrestleMania, it's a very predictable pay-per-view because it's the culmination of whoever won the Royal Rumble and the storylines, whether it be Kofi Kingston or the Yes Movement with Daniel Bryan. The list goes on. But when The Rock fought John Cena, it didn't matter if The Rock was scheduled to film a movie the very next day or if he planned on, if he could go to WrestleMania and say, I am never going to wrestle in WWE again, but it had nothing to do with how that match was going to end because there's nothing on the line. See, The Rock saying he's going to be he's going to film a movie tomorrow, the day after WrestleMania 29, obviously makes me think that he's not going to leave that WrestleMania with the belt, in which he didn't. He lost to John Cena. But when there's nothing on the line, it lets more surprises happen when it comes to the results. That's why I'm always saying that house shows, they can have all the champions there, but championships shouldn't be on the line because every night you could flip-flop the results. You could have, let's not say Bray Wyatt because he's pretty dominant, but when Kofi Kingston's a champion, he could go to a house show. He could lose to Randy Orton 2 out of 3 nights on the house show circuit, but,
it's not like he's losing the title.
Yes, exactly. So for them to they always have to come up with intriguing disqualification finishes. So I like that the championship is not on the line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's many layers to that, so to speak. I think the number one thing is they would ruin Bray's credibility if WWE was dumb enough, the creative was dumb enough to say, you know what, we're just going to pump the brakes on this whole Bray Wyatt thing and give Miz the title, which obviously I don't think they're going to do. So I think keeping the title kind of out of the picture, I think it's going to make it a little bit more intriguing. I think Bray himself has been, or The Fiend has been the most must-see TV.
And that's another thing. This is going to be regular Bray Wyatt from what I'm thinking. It's not going to be The Fiend.
They're not doing The Fiend?
Then that's what it looks like. The Fiend is not going to be taking on Bray Wyatt. So, it will be Bray Wyatt. Or The Fiend will not be Bray Wyatt.
So here's the thing then. Does that mean Miz has a better chance because it's not The Fiend?
I mean, and that adds to the intrigue of this match. And it doesn't even seem like it's going to be a TLC match. Seems so far like
think of it this way. I'm equating the Fiend and Bray Wyatt. I mean, it's different avenues and things like that. But every time Finn Balor came out as a demon, did he ever lose? I don't think he did. I think.
That's kind of the thing going with him. Yeah,
fact check me on that, but I don't think he's ever lost.
Yeah, no,
as the Demon.
Yes, I think that's a going thing. That's why he didn't come out as the Demon at SummerSlam.
Let me ask you this then. So, with that being said, I mean, at this point, if those rumors or those facts or potential facts are true, they unfold where he's not the Fiend at TLC. That to me it makes it more intriguing in the other aspect too, because then it won't ruin Bray's credibility
if he loses.
But if it was the Fiend that loses, that's bad.
Because and it creates kind of a dynamic, because if he loses, then he can say, well, that was, the other person can get revenge. It's like two different people.
Yeah, it's two different entities, so to speak. So they did it well with Finn, and they've continued to do it well with Finn. I could see Bray Wyatt losing matches, but I don't think I'll see same thing. I don't think you're going to see the Fiend lose matches. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, for now at least, yes.
Yeah, for the moment. It would make no sense to me at this point. Well, he's the most interesting, the most intriguing thing on WWE programming right now, in my opinion. I think the Funhouse has been great. These different storylines where he's attacked, The Miz, Daniel Bryan, all these different storylines that have been kind of in place here. I think he's the most must-see thing on WWE programming right now. Do you agree?
Well, yes. I don't think there's really anything else. I definitely see, and that's the thing too. They don't want to burn out this Daniel Bryan, Bray Wyatt thing that's going on, and I think that's why they're taking a pause for this month from it, because I feel like that's going to maybe happen again at the Royal Rumble.
You think so?
Those two facing off against each other. TLC overall, you got a lot of tag team matches with the sense of the two tag team titles are on the line. The Viking Raiders are going to have an open competition, and the Revival takes on the New Day. But
I don't want me to cut you off there. Out of those two, Revival or Viking Raiders, who do you see more likely leaving TLC with the titles?
The Viking Raiders.
Okay.
I see the Viking Raiders setting up an open challenge, and I see them leaving with the belts. And
they're so good too. I love the Revival as well. I like their old school mentality, but the Viking Raiders right now are just squashing everybody. And I want to get to this point real quick before I forget. They fought the Street Profits on Monday Night Raw this week. Mm-hmm. The way they demolished Street Profits, doesn't that kind of ruin Street Profits a little bit? Like it kind of knocks them down a notch. Like I thought they were pretty hot for a little bit. They're not like, I shouldn't say. Let me rephrase that. I don't think they were super like hot, but I thought they were intriguing enough where people are like, okay, maybe these guys could win that match. Like to me, the way they lost, I kind of felt like it was. They were kind of like, are they in Vince's doghouse? Because we all know that happens.
Well, it'd be very intriguing that if the Street Profits, let's answer that open challenge this week and.
They win.
And then they win.
Then the credibility they lost maybe on Monday, they regain it.
Then that point is mute. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than that, the matches, you have the women's tag team matches, titles on the line, and what seems to be like a TLC match. You have the most intriguing match, I would probably say, other than the main event, Rusev versus Bobby Lashley in a tables match. Is this storyline getting a little old to you? Hopefully it's finished.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's done. I'm just over it. It's. And the worst part is like it's. I know they're not really divorced. Obviously, we know that. It's just funny because I feel like them on a personal side, because of social media things, they've really dropped the ball, because they've like taking like their like Instagram posts. I don't have Instagram, but I've heard this from other people that have Instagram. Mm-hmm. That like Lana had something up and then took it down, but it was because it was something really nice about Rusev. It's like. With storylines like that in the day and age of social media,
they just don't work.
They just don't work. They really don't, because you still have your life at home on Instagram and
now,
Twitter.
Now, they would work if this was Edge and Matt Hardy's storyline, because that was real life. That was real life turned into storyline instead of the other way around.
What do you now you bring up another name, Matt Hardy. What did you think about that squash?
In the ring?
Yeah, what was that squash all about?
That's really interesting.
That's a shitty return. He just like.
Well, is it a return, or is he just kind of? Is that his gimmick now? Is that his deal? Not his gimmick, I would say. Is that just his kind of? It'd be kind of like, to me, it's like if Jamie Noble came out and wrestled the match.
I wouldn't. Or
Mercury.
You know what? Here's the thing. I
feel he's done, except for when he just comes out maybe and does like a Jerry Lawler kind of thing. It's like a Jerry Lawler kind of getting squashed.
You think so?
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like.
I'm obviously Jeff Hardy's had his issues, obviously over the years, but more recently with his substance issues and whatnot. Do you think there's any more run left in Hardy Boys?
No.
Okay.
I think the Hardy Boys are done. Speaking of done, or at least for the time being, and speaking of dominant tag teams like the Viking Raiders, the Ascension at one time were a dominant tag team.
Yes, they were.
But they are no longer part of WWE, as well as Sin Cara and Luke Harper. And that took me for the Luke Harper thing. Jonathan Huber which he's known in real life, Big Rig Brody Lee, which he's known on the independent circuit, which he just most recently trademarked, if anybody's interested. Before his being released from WWE. But that kind of took me for a swerve because it looked obvious that that was going to happen. But then they had him come back for a short little run, including the match that he had as part of that big Royal Rumble or whatever at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. So it kind of took me back that maybe they were going to use Luke Harper, but then in the end, they released him. So that was kind of confusing on my end. But a lot of people outside of WWE are very excited about the Luke Harper release. Now, Sin Cara, I think his big problem was he just had too much of that B+ or C+ Rey Mysterio aspect.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even think he's the original Sin Cara, though. Is he?
I mean,
I'm just saying.
Now, one person who could pull off that gimmick that wasn't Rey Mysterio was Ultimo Dragon. I felt Ultimo Dragon when he came in WWE in like the early 2000s. I felt that he had at least a more uniqueness to him. Plus, it was something we hadn't seen before. Sin Cara felt too much, because I feel Ultimo Dragon had a reputation outside of WWE. Sin Cara, he kind of did, but not really. It felt more like a WWE product. And because of that, it just felt like a third-rate Rey Mysterio. And now that Rey Mysterio is back and, going the United States champion, Sin Cara really doesn't have much of a place.
No, I mean, honestly, I think, at this point, he's better off maybe going to the AEWs of the world, maybe going to AAA. I mean,
I was going to even say the AEWs of the world are, because Sin Cara is that, if WWE is TV PG, it's because that's the average, meaning that some of the gimmicks are TV 14 and some of the gimmicks are TV G, and they all meet in the middle of TV PG. He is definitely a TV G gimmick.
Yeah, that's true. That's also true. Now, speaking of wrestlers. Now, in this case, we're going to flip to the other side of it, returns to the business. We've been seeing some previews of Sheamus's return. What are your thoughts on Sheamus? I
thought he was done a while ago. Yeah, it's very intriguing to see he's coming back in the WWE.
He was doing YouTube stuff like the Celtic Warrior workouts and things like that. I was actually listening to Corey Graves' podcast, and he had Sheamus on. And, Sheamus was talking about, like, this is going to be it's going to be really good. Like, obviously, he's selling it, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, he said he's in great shape. He's ready to go.
I hope his return is better than Cesaro's.
Yeah, I agree. As we've talked on many occasions about Cesaro, I always feel like they haven't used him. WWE has not used him the way they should. Now, with Sheamus, I want to get back to him. Do you think this run is going to be good? I mean, what are your expectations on this? I'm not like super stoked. Like, oh my gosh, Sheamus is back. This is going to be the best thing ever. I'm more like, you know what? I'm curious to see what kind of run he's got. I'm
curious because of the fact that the last couple of years he was in WWE, he was so successful with The Bar, teaming up with Cesaro. So if this is a singles run, it'll be first time in 5 years, I would probably say, that we've seen Sheamus by himself.
I'm intrigued. I'm not excited, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
I think that's the proper word for, at least on my end of things.
I'm intrigued. It's all it all just comes down to where they put him. We already know his character. We already know his shtick. Yeah. It all depends on what they can do with it. I guess my big thing is too, it's funny that they did this with The Undertaker and they gave him that American Badass gimmick and so many people didn't like it. Said it saved his career. I feel that could save a lot of people's career. Coming back, when you have such maybe a G-rated gimmick or, kind of a mythical gimmick, come back as a real person. That could maybe help Sheamus's gimmick, you know what I mean? Maybe not be so, the Sheamus from 2009, 2010. I just felt that was such a colorful era for WWE. 2000, because you had like The Miz, that's when he was main event in WrestleMania. You had Sheamus, you had Big Show. You had all these people.
That was a weird time.
Cara.
Weird time.
It felt that was a very TVG era in WWE.
For real. That's absolutely. It was not time. And we've talked on many occasions about this. I tuned out for a bit on that.
Give me more of a gritty Sheamus. Yeah. Give me more of a hard Sheamus, maybe not so polished. I know he's white, but give me dirty him up a little bit.
Hey, you know what? I'm a fellow Irishman. I don't mind the paste. All right, I'm good with the paste. I think he has the physique. He's tall. He's strong. I'm okay with it the way he is. But I do agree. With his attitude. I'm so far with his promos, I kind of have seen. He seems like he's going to be a little more of the rougher Rusev, like this. And I think he said it. And don't quote me on this, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing kind of what I saw. I think he was saying, the division's been soft or whatever. So like he's bringing the toughness or something back. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work too. Because I like Sheamus. I've been a fan of Sheamus for a long time, and I agree with you. It'll be intriguing to see him on a singles. On a singles run. I did like the bar, but I
like the bar. I felt that was my favorite time with Sheamus.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see how he does. In the. I guess what we call it, TV. Is it TVPG still?
Is that still TVPG? Yes,
we're still calling it TVPG.
I think it's TVPG for the fact that overall in society has kind of changed. It might be TV14 if this was 20 years ago, but because where we currently stand, for example, I think South Park, obviously one of the first TVMA shows back when we were younger in the late 90s. South Park was TVMA. It was the first TVMA cartoon out there and it was so wild. I don't think that's TVMA. I think that's TV14 now.
It probably is now, to be honest with you.
So, to be honest with you, TVPG is kind of towing that line with TV14. I think
and
AEW is TVPG. It might be TV14.
TV14.
It's TV14.
It's TV14 because here's the thing. AEW is their thing is they're a little more edgy. They say certain of the quote unquote dirty words that you don't hear on WWE programming.
I mean, we did hear.
I heard bullshit. I heard bullshit on. I think it was on Raw. I think Kevin Owens said that.
Yeah,
that was. I was like. Huh? I was like, wait, is that good now? Now, speaking of Kevin Owens, what do you make of this whole Kevin Owens versus the AOP and Seth Rollins? I mean, I by the way, I just want to pat myself on the back. I knew this whole thing with AOP and Seth Rollins. It was a match made in heaven. I think it was kind of easy. I figured recently. I know you were still. I was gung-ho about Seth Rollins going full heel. That was it for me. I know you were a little more.
I still know if he's full heel.
No, he is. He's full heel because aligning himself with AOP, who AOP are kind of the loners, where you don't screw with them kind of deal. So I think it works. I'm curious to see if they come up with like a name. I don't know. Hopefully it's not like AOP with Seth Rollins or Seth Rollins with AOP. Hopefully they come up with maybe a cool like click kind of name, something so to speak. Because I like the AOP, but they need a talker like Rollins because the language
kind of reminds me of the Straight Edge Society a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
With CM Punk who stood out in front of the tag teams.
Yeah.
Then, and that'd be Seth Rollins standing in front of AOP.
Speaking of the language thing, I know AOP does it. I know a lot of the Japanese wrestlers, they cut promos mostly in Japanese, then they'll say like one word in English. Like, what's your take on that? Do you like it?
I think it's, it's just kind of, it's one of those gimmicks. They kind of just try. They feel that certain languages or the way they use certain languages,
it gets over enough.
It makes it tougher. A good example of that, Muhammad Hassan, he would speak and then he'd have Davari, speak what he just said in Arabic. Yep. And it kind of made it sound tougher. Kind of made it sound like, it goes back to, the singing of the Iraqi national anthem prior, because people necessarily hearing, let's say, the Iron Sheik or Nikolai Volkov saying, speaking in a different language, it gives them that, I must break you kind of,
I love it.
If he didn't speak, I mean,
you will lose.
He did, that is what it's the words that he used that gave him that, kind of evil heel side.
Yes.
So they kind of, look at foreign languages in WWE. They kind of look at it kind of like, they have a vendetta against Americans. They have a vendetta against, the United States and in using that language. So they feel that using their language is like they're speaking to their people. Their people have been, denigrated or, disrespected. So they are, here to give respect to them and not to you, the American. And that's what gives them the heel.
I'll say this. I'll kind of add to that. I mean, especially with Kairi Sane and Asuka, I kind of like what they did this week. They cut pretty much a backstage promo. I think it was a Charlie, and they spoke in their native tongue, and then Charlie's like, I guess I gotta learn some more. I gotta learn different languages. Can you translate so we understand? Then they it was like a quick couple words in English. I liked it like that because they got their message out where. They're not struggling to get the words out because English is not a natural language for them. So I think in that essence, in that aspect, I think it's really cool. I mean, we saw that a little bit with the Humberto Carrillo and El Idolo.
Well,
that was good too.
I think I feel like when it comes to, let's say, Spanish, it depends. I think in Spanish it is a little bit different. I mean, you can kind of go both ways on it, because obviously we saw it with Alberto Del Rio, and the way that he'd be introduced. But then we also see it with the relation, like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. The good guys also use it kind of as a relatable tool because Spanish is a language that is used more in America, and there are definitely people that represent that. There's not really too many Japanese people in America. There's not too many Arabic people.
Not as much. As much. Yeah.
Yes. There's it's not, let's say 40%.
I mean,
Spanish is the second language in the United States.
I agree, 100%.
So there's tons and tons of Spanish speaking people in the United States. There's parts of New York City where they just speak nothing but Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gives that, relates to those people, like, it's kind of what we saw with, Miss America or whatever Miss it was. I don't watch those pageants, but there was a Miss World or Miss Universe one from South America, or South Africa. And she kind of gave that, people are beautiful, can look like me, and kind of relate to, people out there, big is beautiful, black is beautiful,
absolutely.
that kind of thing of like, kind of the message to the kids out there.
You don't have to be, just because you're not the status quo.
Yeah.
You can still be beautiful.
You can be someone you relate to. Good example of that is Kofi Kingston. When he won the championship, he was somebody that, a lot of people said, I look like Kofi Kingston, you know what I mean? And I never thought I could be anything. And here's Kofi Kingston. He's champion. You know what I mean?
What's funny with Kofi? I love
the
Kofi,
relatable
though.
aspect. So that's why, like, when Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio would win,
I mean,
it would be like, this is for us. This is, for our people. And there's a lot of Spanish-speaking Americans out there who, say hurrah to that. I'm
half kidding on this with Kofi. So is it the West Ghana folks or the Jamaican folks? Because I know we had the Jamaican thing going on for a while. It's a kind of a combination of both, because I think he played the Jamaican character pretty well back in the day. So, I think for him, he kind of caters to both audiences, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I love Kofi Kingston. I've been a fan of his. Yeah. His in-ring work is fantastic. And I'll be honest with you, for the first bit, first probably year and a half of our show, I wasn't the big proponent of the New Day, but they've kind of grown on me a little bit over the years. So
they've grown on you with Titus O'Neil as part of the New Day, because that was something brought up this week as somebody who could have and was potentially brought to the New Day's idea as joining the New Day.
I don't like it.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like Titus in, hindsight, 2020. Thankfully, they didn't do that. And, to me, Titus is a very good company man. He stands for a lot of great causes. He's one of the, I guess, I've never met him, but he seems like one of the nicest people in the industry. He's very, very approachable. So he's doing a lot of different things. He's doing like the Be a Bully stuff, things like that. So which I guess it could work with the New Day, but I'm glad they went with Big E, Woods, and Kofi. Like, I couldn't see it any other way at this point. I think those three just mesh.
So a few other things I want to point out. Let's talk AEW versus NXT this week. NXT saw Angel Garza become the new NXT Cruiserweight Champion, as well as proposing to his girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Over on AEW, the big storyline was Jon Moxley was offered a proposal to join the Inner Circle. Obviously, he hasn't given his answer yet. That drags that out a little bit.
Of course, naturally.
The ratings were right down the middle for both this past week.
Who was slightly higher?
I didn't see. I think it was pretty much neck and neck. It was neck and neck from what I read.
Okay.
So, Jon Moxley joining the Inner Circle, does that intrigue you at all?
No, leave it. I like him doing his own lone wolf mentality.
I think
cool.
that's what they're going to do with it. I think this might be leading up to a Chris Jericho.
I think what's going to happen is he's going to make it look like he's going to join the Inner Circle, kind of like how Finn Balor kind of for a minute you thought him and Cole were going to be boys, and then he kicked him in the head. I think what's going to happen is when the Inner Circle's least expecting it, he's going to hit Jericho with what's he called? The paradigm shift? Is that his new? It's not. I know it's not the Dirty Deeds. It's I think it's paradigm shift. Hits him with that and then rolls out of the ring, and gets out of there. Something like that. I think that's in Moxley's his repertoire, so to speak, and his character. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. The Inner Circle, I like it the way it is. I think Sammy G is as Jim Ross calls him, I think he's a rising star in the wrestling business. I think he's great. He has his facial expressions during matches and what he does in the ring. I think he's a star in the making. And being aligned with somebody like Chris Jericho, it's only going to make him even better. And I'm excited to see what happens with him. But Inner Circle as a whole, I like it the way it is right now.
So this Saturday night, NWA and their new reborn old school approach has their first pay-per-view event from Atlanta, Georgia. It is called Into the Fire. It looks like a pretty intriguing pay-per-view. We'll just go over some of the matches real quick. Some of the names we're going to probably bring up are the ones you recognize. For example, Trevor Murdoch. He's facing a masked man known as Question Mark, but Trevor Murdoch is in action. Melina, speaking of Johnny Nitro, Melina is in action. She takes on Ashley Vox and Allison Kay in what looks like it's going to be a 2-on-1, because Melina does have Thunder Rose and Marty Bell. I'm not familiar with these people, but it's either, I think she picks one of those and it's going to be a tag team women's match. Okay. So she picks one of those to team up with her, but I think, for the most part, it's her captaining that team. Eli Drake versus Ken Anderson, Ken Kennedy.
Yep.
That actually probably to me will be the match tonight. Eli Drake, I think he was very well used when he was Impact Wrestling. I felt he was probably the star for a while. Him and EC3 were definitely going back and forth with Johnny Nitro.
Do you think WWE would ever bring Eli Drake in?
Other than because I feel like he had a dark match back in the day as like a tryout.
I don't even count those.
Bring him in.
Or you think he's good with his niche right now?
I think he is probably pretty good with his niche because he went from Impact to NWA. I would actually rather see him in AEW if he was going anywhere. I'd rather see him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you.
The champion Nick Aldis, speaking of somebody who went from Impact to NWA, who is definitely doing the Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega thing, and that's given himself quite the brand on his own, doing his own thing, marketing himself and making himself marketable for the WWEs in the future.
I love it.
Nick Aldis, the most well-dressed champion, is going to be in a best 2 out of 3 falls match for the championship against another guy who NXT
for like a hot second.
Using for a hot second, but obviously Impact and TNA was James Storm.
Not to cut you off on that.
Beer Money Incorporated.
Real quick with James Storm. I believe if I read that right, I think Triple H left the door open for him, James Storm, because I think Triple H is very high on him. That'll be a good match. So all this and Storm, I think that'll be good too.
Colt Cabana, CM Punk's best friend, takes on Aaron Stevens. That is the NWA name for Damian Sandow. And Ricky
boy.
Starks. That is for the NWA National Championship. That's an interesting name for your secondary belt there. I have to say that you have a world championship and a national championship.
Who do you think's going to win? Do you think Colt's going to keep it?
Yeah, I think if anybody does take it away, I think it's maybe Damian Sandow. Aaron Stevens.
Aaron Stevens, yeah.
According in the NWA
I
world.
still call him Mizdow.
And speaking of, NWA, AEW, the Rock and Roll Express, we saw them make that quote-unquote return at the last AEW pay-per-view. They're going to be in a tag team match against NWA's Wild Cards for the Tag Team Championships. They are currently the champions. They're still kicking it. They made their debut in 1983, and what a place for them to finish out. But NWA,
I
the old
agree.
school mentality.
I like it, and I will say this on a quick note: the wild cards are pretty good from what I've seen. So I think that'll be as good of a match as it can be with older competitors. So we'll see.
And the final thing I probably want to bring up this week: new Hall of Fame inductees, the earliest they've probably ever been announced.
I know.
Batista's going to be in, as well as the NWO, which is Nash, Hall, Hogan, and X-Pac.
Yep.
Are they going to put him in his 6?
I wonder
what his WCW name.
So here's an intriguing thing about that. So that's marketable for X-Pac, because then he'll be a 2-time Hall of Famer. So that's kind of cool.
The question is he a Hall of Famer outside by himself?
No. I don't think so.
But especially now that you're putting him in with every faction.
Yeah, you're not going to. I mean, if there's anybody that's going to be the first 3-time Hall of Famer, it's not going to be him. So just going to.
That would be very intriguing. I mean, it'd be like Robert Horry. You know what I mean? He's not Michael Jordan. He's not Kobe, but he's got more rings than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys.
X-Pac would be that great trivia question answer of who's in the Hall of Fame the most. You'd think Hogan, the non-wrestling fan. Yeah. But it might be X-Pac.
We'll see.
What do you think? I'm not against and people say, other people should be in first. I definitely think people like Vader, and it's still on the table for Vader to be in this upcoming class.
Agreed.
But I understand the Batista thing, because you strike when the iron is hot. You strike when they're around the most, when they've been around most recently. A good example of that is, Goldberg, right after he wrestled 1 year.
Plus, you got to remember, too, Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Hollywood is very important as well.
Yeah. I mean, so you have that aspect. To the fact that Batista just wrestled his last match at last year's, and that's what they like to do. I think, The Undertaker, he's not going to be in this class because you've already made this announcement. What do you think the reason is, though, they've made the announcement so far ahead of time?
That, to me, I still can't figure that out. Usually they do it a little bit more, Royal Rumble season coming up, after Royal Rumble, they'll start announcing, every other week they'll announce, the newest member of the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't get the reason why. Maybe
because it's going to be on a Thursday this year. Is that a way to bring up ticket sales? But I don't think that this class is going to bring up ticket sales. If you announce the Undertaker, that is different. He can sell out on a Tuesday night. But
I disagree.
Batista headlining.
Yeah, honestly,
I mean, I went when Goldberg headlined, and that was probably one of the lowest. I mean, I know Batista has more time in WWE, but Goldberg's a bigger name
here's the
than
thing.
Batista.
And NWO itself is one of those names that's very nostalgic for folks, maybe our age, a little bit older. So I could see it. I mean, I think you're right. I think you're hitting on it, where they're doing it this early because they want to draw up the ticket sales, so they don't do it last minute where people are like, oh, now they can plan their tickets ahead. They can plan ahead of time.
Speaking of three-time champion with X-Pac, why do you think I normally like it when they have more factions? I don't want just Shawn Michaels and Triple H to be DX, but in this case, I think just the three of them as NWO would be good without X-Pac, because if you're going to include X-Pac, then there's like thousands of others. Because remember, NWO was very large. And, Horace Hogan and, Virgil and everybody at one time joined the NWO. So, why exactly is it those three and X-Pac? I think they could keep X-Pac out.
Yeah, but I think the reasoning behind it was, maybe
why not Sting?
The most I think the most impactful time is in their mind is when he was part of the group. So
are you going to ever induct the NWO Wolfpack on their own? Because that's,
that's the I mean,
Conan.
I mean, it's possible, but I have other people.
Conan, Kevin Nash, when he was in the red and black.
I mean, I would say not now. I'd say maybe down the line they could put him in like the legacy wing, maybe.
They're not going to be headlining a class, is what you're saying.
No, I don't
so
think
that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. TLC this weekend, NWA, and then next week, the final week of live AEWs and NXTs, because from what I heard, they're going to be taping some shows for Christmas, and we'll have TLC Fallout as well. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, you can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21, and myself, K-Rock Jared, on the social media, and most importantly, Heel to the Face. That does it for this week's edition of the show. Until next week, that's all.